Well, fear, one more time. Why are we talking about it? Because it's pervasive in this society today. There's been such a spirit of fear that has been released into our society that we can see manifest through China virus and the events of the day. It's not just a virus that was released. There's something far more where people act and react differently. And I want you to understand that fear also has a frequency. It literally has a frequency. And a frequency that can even instill and install. It is said that lions roar at a frequency of about 18 decibels, and it will literally, when you have something there, it will cause this fear, physical manifestation of fear to come upon you, and even animals and things like that, which is real interesting. We're not going to talk about that, but I want you to know you can be in the presence of the enemy, but if you know whom you serve, it's not an issue. It doesn't matter what that frequency is. If the enemy is at the doorstep, but do not fear. Remember, he waits, he rests, he can't move. We're the ones that open the door. So it doesn't matter if you're surrounded. So whatever it is, Yahweh is with you. And you know that. But unless you have a strong faith in our King and our Yah, anytime a storm comes into your life, into our lives, the first thing that happens is that we begin to lose our shalom, our peace, and begin to, all of a sudden, we feel fear and panic and worry. And those are all not from Yah. No, it's the enemy, Hasatan, who injects what if into our thoughts, into our heads. And we begin to think, what if this outcome, what if that outcome, what's going to happen? Guys, that is fear. And those are snake eggs. Those are things the enemy has planted in our mind. And we're supposed to take every thought captive. Yes, we are. And remember that there is no safer place than the center of his will. I don't care if the storms are raging. I don't care if you're in a prison or in a prison-like place, or the enemy surrounds you. If you're in the center of his will, that's the perfect and most safe place. Now, I want us to go and understand a few things. I'm going fast because I have a lot to cover. But when David had the stone and he threw it at Goliath, remember, stone is Eben. And think about the stone, Yeshua, the rock, the stone the builders rejected. You're going to face giants, but that word and Yeshua are what will cause that giant to fall to the ground where you can cut off his head. But you must take action. You must take action. And if you don't see the power of God working mightily in your life, you need to do a life check. If they're not problems that rise up, we know that the enemy comes in when he says, hey, you're messing with my kingdom and my territory, so I'm going to send an obstacle along your way. And many times the beginning and the root of how he does it is fear. We struggle with it. Fear of the unknown, the future, our kids, our nation, our finances, health, death. What do others think about us? Ridicule. Oh, the weather, the government, you name it. We fear. We are people that walk in fear instead of faith. And that's why we see so many with today's circumstances walking in fear and no faith. They don't turn to Yahweh, our Elohim. They turn to the God of the white coats. They turn to the government and other things. No, we do not walk in fear. When you look at fear in Hebrew, yareh, you use this yud and this resh and this olive. And the yod is the arm and the closed hand, meaning to work and to throw and to worship. And the resh is the head of a man. And the olive is the ox head, which is strong and power and leader. So what the man fears in this pictograph is what the man bows his head to in worship, as in greater than himself. When you elevate your thoughts on this thing and you focus on this thing and it is constantly on your mind, it's almost as if you are worshiping that, because that has taken the place of Yah. And again, it starts with, do we take our thoughts captive? Because the spies, the 10 spies, they all saw the same thing. But 2 of them, Joshua and Caleb, they knew who their source was, and they remembered who they were in the midst of it. Fear can show up in so many ways. It can cause you to be hesitant. It can cause you to be insecure, full of doubt, unbelief. But it also manifests in your body physically. You may fear things of the past. You may fear things of the future, but we all have to take an evaluation of our own life and say, where do we stand in this? Do we let fear move us? If you are worrying about something, then yes, you do. Fear is a weapon of Hasatan. He uses it to keep us from moving forward. He uses it to paralyze us, to intimidate us, to keep us from being who we're supposed to be and accomplishing what Yah has called us to do, because he brings us to this state of fear where we're frozen. So when something negative happens, the enemy wants us to focus on what if, and what's happening in today's world with the government. What if, what if, what if? Well, I still know that our Yah is sovereign no matter what the circumstances. And he says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And he also is out there fighting. You remember, as a shield and buckler, he is the one that stands between the enemy and us. He is that shield. So who do we fear? What circumstances do we fear? Do we speak life and faith over them? He wants us to shrink back in fear. But Yahweh desires us to live free from the effects of fear. You know, people spend their entire lives reacting to their circumstances. Well, guess what? You're not supposed to react. You are supposed to act. That means it doesn't matter how you feel or what you've experienced. You act according to the word. You do not react according to the circumstance. And when you do, you realize your life is empty and you haven't accomplished anything because you've let fear surround you and take hold of you. Fear doesn't just show up at the big things. It shows up at the little things too. Remember that. It comes in all forms, but it shows up and it literally keeps you from becoming and doing and being who you are called to be. Even fear of rejection, fear of people making fun of you, all of it affects the way you act and react. It intimidates you. It intimidates you from being who you're supposed to be. When we don't understand how fear works, we can even begin blaming others for the reason we're uneasy or for the reason we haven't accomplished things, but that's not really the case. It's fear. And we're the ones that have to take the weapons of the warfare that Yah has given us. We are the ones that have to stand up and not be afraid and not walk in this constant what if mentality. Even if it shows up unexpectedly, we can't do that. In his word, he says, fear not, over and over and over again. He's not saying that we may not feel fear or experience fear for a moment. We may feel afraid at times, but he's telling us, do not allow fear to control you and prevent you from moving forward. Remember its source, take those thoughts captive, speak the word, praise him, and do what he's called you to do, despite what the voices may be saying. Cut those voices off, because that's what courage is. True courage is moving forward in the face of fear. And he did not give you a spirit of fear. He did not give you a spirit of fear. Remember, why are you fighting a fight that has already been won? Yeah, I'm going to say that again. Remember that you are fighting a fight that has already been won. You have been called to be an overcomer, and we are told over and over again, do not fear. That's a commandment. He's not asking or requesting. He says over and over, do not fear. Do not make that thing your God. Well, it's not my God. What you dwell on, where your heart is, where you spend your time, that is a God, little g. And yeah, fear can move us into that place of where that has taken over Yahweh's place in our lives. And we serve that thing and we act and react according to that thing instead of what Yah says. Stand and do not fear. Pray in the spirit. Pray unceasingly. Put your armor on and go and make disciples of all nations. Take dominion and push the enemy back. That's the agenda we have. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Fear of anything other than Yahweh is of the enemy. It's a lack of trust in our King. It's a lack of trust in our Father. Again, he says, do not be afraid. If the children of Israel had feared Yahweh and not the inhabitants of the land, things would have been different. But it's a roadmap for us. But what do? We keep repeating those mistakes. How often do we let our circumstances dictate how we live and how we move and how we believe? We do not have that. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to walk around with your head in the clouds. No, we see the same thing the world may see, but we see it through the eyes of Yahweh. And if we fear Yahweh more than we fear others, more than we fear the leftists, more than we fear the police state, more than we fear the enemy, then our eyes will be open and we will say, let's go up. Let's go up because we can overcome. And that's the words that are supposed to be coming out of our mouth. We also will encourage those around us, not bring them down. What are our words like? Are words speaking forth faith? Are they speaking forth life? Are they speaking forth doom and gloom? Because your tongue, in this last week's tour portion, I taught your tongue, when you break the words down, your tongue is what allows things in and allows things out. Are we speaking life over our nation? I don't care who's in office. I don't care the circumstances. I don't care what day and hour we in. He still says to pray, and he still says Yah's word still says to speak forth life. And that's what we should be doing. Are we those kind of people who walk in fear so that everything that comes out of our mouth establishes fear, brings forth fear? Or when we are around, are we a force that brings shalom into the midst of the group or the person we're talking to, because the word of Yah comes out of our mouth, and all of a sudden that spirit of fear or that what if that they've been walking in changes because they begin to see things through Yah's eyes. That's who we're supposed to be. We fear Yahweh more than we fear man. And anytime we trust in Yahweh, we exercise our faith and we will prosper spiritually always. We can't let our eyes deceive us or focus on what appears to be happening in the natural. Just because you can see the enemy doesn't mean that enemy has any authority over you. And we cannot make that thing our Yah. We can't make that thing the enemy would try to put on us holy. The word says the violent take it by force. Do we? Are you? That's the question. Are you? Are you taking it by force? Are you standing and not being moved? Or do you let Yahweh sit on the throne of your soul, of your heart? Or do you allow some other thing to come, yourself, your circumstance, to sit on the throne and guide and direct your life and cause you to move left or right? What is it? David said, when I'm afraid, I put my trust in you. Psalm 56:3. 2 Chronicles 20:17 says, you shall not need to fight in this battle. Take your positions and stand still and see the deliverance of the Lord who is with you, O Judah and Jerusalem. Fear not, nor be dismayed. Tomorrow, go out against them, for Yah is with you. Around us, we see a world acting and reacting in fear. Churches, congregations have closed. People have stopped gathering. The government's threatening and people cower and line up as zombies to do whatever they say because we have a world full of fear right now. But we serve the living God who has overcome the world, and you are the overcomer. You're his hands and feet. We stand and we know who we are and we know who we serve, and we shall not be moved. That's the word. We shall not be moved. Do not allow fear to take hold in your life, no matter what your circumstances may be. Do not let the spirit of fear move you, as that spirit that's been released, not just in this nation, but throughout the world. The world is experiencing something that it never has. And it's a spiritual attack where leaders no longer lead as they've promised or as they've said, or even as they've done in the past, but it seems they've quickly switched sides because there's a spirit that's been released, and part of that operates in intimidation and fear. Remember what I said? Why are you fighting a fight that's already been won? Why are you doing it? Who do you remember? Who do you serve? Are you going to take that stone, that word, Yeshua, and knock the giant down? Or are you going to let the giant squash you with his foot because you fear? The promises of the enemy, he may promise safety, but they will lead to destruction. The only true safe place is in the center of his will. And you can, there again, you can be in the presence of the enemy. The enemy has surrounded you on every side. Your finances, what are we going to do? Your children, what is happening? Society, whatever it may be. But if you know whom you serve, he can't, and you act upon that, he can't touch you. Do not fear. Do not fear. For Yah is with you, so who can be against you? Greater is he who is within you than he who is within the world. Do not fear. Remember who you are. You are a soldier in the army of Yah. You've been given the weapons to fight the battle. He didn't leave you unequipped. And he's giving you the strongest thing, the most powerful thing in your arsenal. But you have to take action. You take your thought captives and stand with that armor on. And remember, you're not alone. If he is for you, who can be against you? All right, guys, I tried to say a lot really, really fast. So come on in.
Can I'd like to read this devotion. I read a devotion every morning. And on the 24th, it says, strive to trust me in more and more areas of your life. Anything that tends to make you anxious is a growth opportunity. Instead of running away from these challenges, embrace them, eager to gain all the blessings I have hidden in the difficulties. For if you believe that I am sovereign over every aspect of your life, it is possible to trust me in all situations. Don't waste energy regretting the way things are or thinking about what might have been. Start at the present moment, accepting things exactly as they are. Now, I don't agree with that, but to accept them and to be like David, okay? And search for my way in the midst of those circumstances. Trust is like a staff you can lean on as you journey uphill with me. If you are trusting in me consistently, the staff will bear as much of your weight as needed. Lean on, trust, and be confident in me with all your heart and your mind. And we need to learn to do that. And you brought up David in 1 Samuel 17. Y'all read the whole story. It shows the fear that a whole group of soldiers that had the armor on, okay, had physical armor on, were scared of a giant. And a shepherd boy comes along, and he had the armor of Yahovah, and he spoke forth Yahovah's word to the giant who was blaspheming, because he could see the giant, but he saw behind the giant something even bigger, which was Yahovah. And we need to remember that story, because that shows us right there that if we follow him and we're in that full armor of God, that the things of this world will be defeated and we will win because we have him. Because if you read the end of the book, or really Genesis to Revelation, the whole thing shows us that he wins. So why are we afraid?
Amen. Sherry.
Well, fear is actually a form of unbelief. And I heard, and I've never personally counted it, but I've heard that it says, do not fear 365 times in the Bible. So it means one for every day. He tells us every day, do not fear. But unbelief is what kept our ancestors, like you were referring to, from entering in to the land, to the promised land. And they were fearful, so they didn't believe. And it got so bad that Yahweh could not persuade them. That word there is that they couldn't be persuaded. So we need to trust him. He loves us. He cares for us. He sent Yeshua to die in our place. And like I've said before, I'm not volunteering, and I would really have to trust the Lord. But I mean, if it came to us dying for him, we still get resurrected. We still win. So, and I think that's really what encouraged the early believers.
Right.
You know, so they didn't even fear death.
That's
That's
true.
the biggie.
It is. Hey, I was just thinking of something, Mark, and you'll probably relate to this. I had talked about the frequency of fear, and I didn't have to a lot of time to go into it. But I remember a movie, and I think it was one of them where they have the compilation of Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman. And Batman, there's these little bug-like creatures, almost demonic, that have come up from the pit, and they attack those. It's the line in the movie. It says they can smell fear, and it will attract them to you, and then it attracts them to you, and they kill you or do whatever. But it just reminded me that that frequency, and it's really apropos too, because those creatures came up from the pit and they attacked you when they smelled fear, because fear's that open door. Anyway, movie reference. There you go.
Yeah, it's not only us. Everybody alive recognizes fear. Everybody alive. I mean, that is a word that is taught at a very young age. Every child knows the word fear, and parents have to teach their children how to fear and what to fear and not to fear and that type of thing. My gosh, you just made a reference to a movie. I scan movies. I look at trailers and things all the time. Once again, as I said earlier, I'm into concepts, and I grab a hold of anything. It's extremely noticeable how many horror movies have children in them or based around children. And even this ties to our whole show today, because Joe's talking about, making sure that we watch over our kids and take back our kids and that type of stuff. Yet they are, even the world knows that if we can grab our kids early, then we have them in our control. A bully manipulates and works for weaknesses. Okay. And fear, to me, fear is a weakness within our soul, within who we are. I wrote this down as you were talking about. You said that we've not been given a spirit of fear. We all know that fear is healthy. We know that if fear is in the right way. An ungodly fear, which is a spirit of fear, that's an ungodly fear, is not healthy. And it's just, the world knows this, and bullies know this. The world, you can even look at the world as bullies, because they know how to manipulate the world. They've had years and years and years of practice manipulating the people of the world. And now that we have communication, we have the internet, and we have television, and we have movies, and we have all of this media that the bullies of the world can now grab a hold of. We know Satan does everything little by little by little by little. Pretty soon we have no idea. We're right smack in the middle of something that's going on. And so just like creating movies that involve horror stuff and monsters and things like that totally engulf children. They're starting young. They know how to do it. They are using those manipulation tactics. And we're not given a spirit of fear. That is what, like I say at the beginning, we start off very early, and especially anymore, teaching our children what fear is and what the right fear, good, righteous fear is, and respect and that type of thing, what bad fear is. But if you're not if you're not following the Lord, if you don't have a commitment to God, then you're not going to be teaching your children these right concepts, these righteous concepts to your children, and they are going to fall into the worldly concept, right? And it's huge. It's just huge. The media, and we know that with all the media devices that children have access to, you literally have to watch every second of everything they're doing, because it doesn't even make a difference if they're looking something up. Something is going to pop up that's going to be of interest, and they know how to make it look interesting, not only to kids, to teenagers, to adults, the whole thing. You don't even have to go looking for it. They're gonna bring it to you. And if you're weak, that's why I say fear is a weakness. And that's what Satan is after, is to find those weaknesses and go after those weaknesses. So that's what you said. Was I wrote down the what if. Sherry did a whole teaching on what if that was just absolutely amazing. I mean, it's been a while back, but really, really good. Anyway, so much more we can say.
Yeah. Well, you guys, did anybody have a last word they wanted to put in there?
I thought that was the last word. No, I'm sorry.
There you go. That can be the last word. That's fine. I know we've been covering the topic of fear for a few weeks, but it's a huge topic. It's something huge that each and every one of us deal with daily, actually, or choose to push away from our lives daily.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.